All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our part 3 of digestion. We're looking at the accessory organs today. So we have our regular digestive pathway, and there's other organs that are not necessarily in the direct route, which also affect one's ability to digest. So big picture idea here, if I can get the pen going, is just what these accessory organs are. So 1, we have the pancreas. 2, we have the gallbladder. And 3, we have the liver. So each of these ones contribute either enzymes or some other molecule in order to get the job done. The gallbladder also has an intermediate function where it's storage of a certain molecule. So we'll get onto that in a second. The cartoon on the side here has not a whole lot to do with digestion. I just thought it looked funny. So there's a little gift for you. All right, so chemical digestion in the small intestine is what we're going to be looking at. And we have the 2 main accessory organs, but we also have one that's going to be intermediate. So we have our pancreas and our gallbladder. These ones are actually connected to the small intestine. We have the 3rd one, which is the liver, that's indirectly connected through a duct, but we'll get there. So here we have. So off of the pancreas, we have a common bile duct. And so what happens is this is where bile comes down, meets up with the pancreatic duct, and then enters the small intestine. So let's look at the pancreas first. So this is where pancreatic juice is made. And the pancreatic juice contains a few different things. One of them we've talked about before, pancreatic amylase. And these are what it contains. So it contains sodium bicarbonate. So sodium bicarbonate. And this is a buffer. So what this buffer does is it neutralizes the acidic pH that comes from the chyme. So it neutralizes the acidic chyme. So it gets it to have its pH of 7 to 8. Okay, so it reacts with all those hydrogen ions that are coming from the HCl. The next one we have is lipase, and we've talked about this one last time. Lipase is the enzyme that breaks down fats or lipids. We have trypsin, which is an enzyme that breaks down the polypeptides. So this does the polypeptide to peptide breakdown. So it just makes that chain of amino acids smaller. We have our pancreatic amylase, which we talked about before. This brings our starch down into our maltose. We have nucleases, which is just an enzyme that breaks down nucleic acid. We won't get into much about the nucleic acid breakdown. So it breaks down nucleic acid. And the last one is water, which of course we need as well because these are all hydrolytic enzymes. So without the water, it's not going to function properly. Okay, moving on. So the next one we're looking at is the gallbladder. And this is connected to the liver and the small intestine. And the function of it, like we talked about in the last part, is that it stores and sends bile via the bile duct. Okay, common bile duct. So when the liver produces the bile, it's going to be stored temporarily in the gallbladder until it's needed. So don't forget this first, oh goodness. So don't forget, the bile is not an enzyme. What this does is it helps with the physical digestion. So the whole point of this is to increase the surface area. And that process is called emulsification. Which allows for increase the enzyme activity. So hopefully this color and the size is big enough. Give me the feedback if it's not, just because I know you guys will be watching on small devices. The other thing too is that bile is made by the liver. So gallbladders are really popular in terms of bare gallbladders. They're a hot commodity over in Asia, and a bare gallbladder can actually sell for up to $45,000 because people want it for the medicinal properties. So some people think that it can cure anything from cancer to erectile dysfunction. So it's like I said, a hot commodity in Canada, maybe about $800 for them, and then in Asia it's $45,000 for all the different things that they can produce from it. All right, the liver. So we have 6 functions. We have the acronym. It's super cryptic. BBBBBU. So let's start with the first B. So it's all about blood sugar. So the liver can regulate this blood sugar. We'll just say BS by secreting hormones, insulin and glucagon. So these are both hormones. Okay. The next thing is blood detoxification. So all of our blood gets run through our liver, and this is what takes out all of the toxins. So things like alcohol will be able to be detoxified here. The problem, though, is if it's overwhelmed with toxins over prolonged use. So chronic alcohol users, that's when liver breakdown can occur, or psoriasis. And psoriasis is just where specific parts of your liver are gradually breaking down to eventually you can have full liver failure. So actually there's about 1 ounce per hour Oh, that's wrong. Sorry, that's a wrong fact. Don't copy that down. You're going to have to erase that. So this filters about 1 liter of blood per hour. So that's quite a bit. And the next one we have is bile production. So this is where this next fact was. There's about 1 ounce per hour of bile produced. Blood proteins, so specific proteins that are going to be used in blood, like hemoglobin, they're going to be created here. And blood cells are broken down. So once blood cells, as we're going to see in the circulation, they have a certain shelf life of about 3 months. After they die, they need to be regenerated or broken down somewhere so they're not just free floating in the cell, and that happens. So it's about 3-month life, and then it needs to be taken care of. And the last thing is we have urea. So NH3 is produced here. Okay, so those are our 5 B's and our 1 U. Last thing that we're going to talk about in the pancreas, it has 2 functions. One is an exocrine gland and one is an endocrine. So what exocrine means is that whatever it produces, whatever hormone or molecule, it's going to go directly into the organ or the duct, whereas an endocrine gland, it goes directly into the blood. So that's things like hormones, like which one we're going to talk about now, insulin and glucagon. So this is a big role. So this is all about blood sugar regulation. So as you can see, there's a little graphic illustration of what's happening here, but I'll give you the step-by-step here. So if you have high blood sugar, so you eat a big meal and you need to break down some of that glucose in your blood, what happens is the pancreas releases insulin. And what insulin does is it travels through blood, and it binds with protein receptors on the cell membranes of the liver. So once that happens, it causes a reaction inside the cell, and that reaction allows this cell membrane to open up. So these, I guess, channels open and allow glucose to enter cell. And then what happens is once there's enough glucose in there, the glucose gets converted into glycogen. And so this is the storage product. Okay. So this is a similar process for when there's low blood sugar, but it's just a completely different hormone. So I'm just going to erase this so we can go over the next part. And we'll turn it around. So if there's low blood sugar, instead of releasing insulin, it's going to release its antagonistic partner. So it's going to release glucagon. This glucagon has the same target. So it targets the liver cells through the bloodstream. What happens when it binds with the liver cells is it causes the glycogen to break down, and that glycogen, when it breaks down, as we know, it breaks down into glucose, and the glucose is released back into the blood, where now you have your blood sugar that's higher. So glucose is released back into the blood, which again increases the blood sugar back to a normal level. So this is just another process where homeostasis is achieved. And then the last thing I just want to talk about is diabetes and what is the cause. So type 1, so this is insulin dependent. So this means the cells that produce insulin in the pancreas are destroyed. They don't work. So there's no insulin produced at all, so you need artificial insulin in order to control your blood sugar. Type 2 is more, a lot of the time it's late onset due to some health issues in terms of dietary issues. So type 2 would be where the binding sites on the liver, so the proteins, for some reason, and they're not sure the exact process why, don't bind to insulin properly. So even though insulin's floating around in the blood, it can't have its affected job. It doesn't actually work. So it doesn't affect it. So this is usually, and why we have this, it's usually linked to health. For some reason, when you're unhealthy, the liver isn't working extra and is not able to bind properly. There we go. So the last thing, the digestion overview, just make sure you know what each of the functions and the structures are of each of these accessory organs, and then also the blood sugar regulation. That's a big one. So know the process and the steps. Okay, so come tomorrow with the notes done, and then any questions. I'm sure there'll probably be some questions on the blood sugar regulation. So we will see you then. Thanks very much.